Welcome, everyone, to the Last Stop Penn Station presents the Poster of the Week. Ian Riccaboni, Cary Silkin. For those just joining us, each week we go through a poster or two. It's now the Posters of the Week, Cary. And we go through your personal collection and give a little bit of history on some of the events that you have represented in your poster collection of in the thousands.
Well, some of the kids might be happy because we're going from 55 years ago now to 45 years ago.
It's a little more current.
And maybe then, and poster number 2 is going to be about, actually we're going from 60 to 50 and then to 40.
Oh, there we go.
So the first poster we're going to be seeing comes from June of 1970.
Okay.
And our posters this week have a running theme that has sort of been a fascination of mine with one particular wrestler. And that wrestler is the legendary Lee Wong.
So I collect Moses Malone basketball cards. He's obviously in the Hall of Fame. Lee Wong, before we get into the posters, let's explain who Lee Wong is to the viewers. Not necessarily a Hall of Famer.
No. Lee Wong started his career, as far as through my research and personally remembering him, in 1970 in WWF. And he got a bit of a push in the beginning of his career. And he had matches, he would beat Johnny Roz. He would beat Chuck Richards. This is all 1970. Joe Turco. And then after 3 months or so, they saw he wasn't doing that well. And he was losing matches to Professor Tanaka, which is not who was a top star at the time. And he started losing. And one of the strange things, and I was talking to Kevin Sullivan about this, after 1970, they must have had some faith in him or some kind of odd connection, because they sent him to probably what territory do you think where the wrestling was sort of the opposite of what WWF was doing at the time?
I would say Crockett, right?
Close enough. Florida.
Okay, yeah.
They sent him to Eddie Graham.
Yeah, with the Briscoes and the wrestlers. He
was there for a good month. And I was talking with Kevin Sullivan about this, and I also showed him a Lee Wong match that's on YouTube against Blackjack Mulligan from the Garden.
Yeah.
And there's no explanation. But anyway, Lee Wong came back in 1970, WWF, losing. And for some reason, if I could find it here, he had 2 wins in a row against Nikita Mulkovich, who was a manager of the Russians. Okay. Not the Iron Russians.
Right. We spoke about them.
The Russians. And he continued losing after that to everyone and wrestled through 75-ish. And here's a very strange thing. His last recorded match of the 70s was against Jack Evans in Albany, New York.
But not that Jack Evans.
No.
Not the current Jack Evans.
It was the old Jack Evans who was around. And then he took a 6-year break.
Of course.
And suddenly he reappeared at the Fieldhouse Hamburg tapings, losing to Greg Valentine, losing to, you brought this name up to me, Yushiaki Yatsu.
Yeah. Who ended up having a big run in New Japan, I found out, thanks to Chris Charlton, one of the announcers.
Right, losing to everyone. Baron Cicluna.
Larry Sharp, one of the guys that broke me in to wrestling.
And he continued in 81. he had a few matches in 82. There's one you could watch on WWE Network against the Iron Sheik. And his swan song was the Iron Sheik in 84 in a handicap match, defeated Lee Wong and Victor Mercado. Remember that name?
Victor Mercado, I do, right here in Allentown, right here in the Lehigh Valley.
And that's where the match was.
Yeah.
At Ag Hall. So without any further ado.
This is the Lee Wong Spectacular,
Lee
folks.
Wong Spectacular. But the poster there's a lot of cool stuff on here.
All right.
So
And we're very gentle.
There we go.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you said this is the Lee Wong poster, but I'm immediately drawn to the main event. Let's start, though, with Lee the Cat Wong. And it says he's the Ecuadorian champion. So when he's in Allentown, he's announced from, I think, Chinatown, if I'm not correct.
And he's also been announced from China.
From just China. Okay.
And on the match that's available on YouTube and on WWF Network, 73 Garden, he was in the opening match and against Blackjack Mulligan, and they announced him from Ecuador. Now, how this is just wild. And not only that, he was apparently the Ecuadorian champion.
Now, I'm not for stereotypes. There's a great series on ad-free shows called Wrestling with Stereotypes that does an awesome job of dismantling them, and Shane Taylor's been a guest on it in Ring of Honor. But when I hear the name Lee Wong, Ecuador is not the first country my mind goes to. I just got to put that out there.
Well, he was taking on Al Smith, who was another underneath guy. The other preliminary match.
Yeah.
I'm sure you don't know the name Bull Molina.
I don't. I know Red Bastien, though.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Bull Molina was another enhancement guy. But Red Bastien, he had a big run he had a long career. But the Bastien brothers in 1960-61 had the old Capital Wrestling Tag Championships, which they lost to the Graham brothers, won them back, lost to the Kangaroos. And once again, thank you, Kevin Sullivan. I said, how did it, because he came back. He was on a Garden show and he was on this Long Island Arena show. Maybe he was just passing through and he knew the McMahon Sr.
Yeah.
But he was a big name. And which brings us to the big tag team match.
Yeah. So the Mongols, there was various Mongols, right? There's Beppo, Guido, or Ghetto. Guido.
Ghetto Mongol.
Well, Ghetto's, of course, in New Japan. Geto, I believe.
No,
right?
this was Beppo and Guido.
Yeah.
And you know who Beppo was.
Beppo was Nikolai Volkov, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And Guido Mongol was Tony Newberry.
Oh, okay.
Who, once again, Kevin told me somehow was involved in the Pittsburgh part of the WWF, which Bruno had, after he got, when his career took off, he bought into that. And Kevin says that he bought his points from Tony Newberry.
Okay.
So Tony Newberry went from basically a mid-card, not so great guy, but they shaved his head with the little pigtail thing.
Yeah.
And the Mongols were a big tag team.
They were tag team champions too, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're taking on the Great Gorilla Monsoon and Mario Milano. And Mario Milano wrestled from 1960 into the 80s. He had a huge run in Australia with Jim Barnett.
Oh, wow. In the original WCW.
Correct.
Okay.
And they would bring in these ethnic guys like, There was a big Italian population there, and there was also a big Greek population, and Spiros Arion was there.
Oh.
But he came to New York, and he stayed in New York for about a year. And the other names, well, actually, I was going to say the other names we know, but that's not true. We certainly know Victor Rivera.
Sure. He was a big-time top of the card guy in the 60s and into the 70s for WWF.
And I don't know if we mentioned this on one of our shows. He was slated to be the heir apparent.
We did in the last ad-free show. He was. You mentioned he was supposed to win the title instead of Pedro, right?
So he's taken on Professor Tanaka, and Professor Tanaka had a long run with Mr. Fuji. What was the other later on? Was he with Mr. Saito?
Mr. Saito came in briefly with Fuji, yeah.
And Kevin was telling me that he knew Tanaka very well from his time in Knoxville. And Tanaka was, he was portrayed as Japanese, but he was Hawaiian.
Oh.
He was in the American military.
Wow.
He was a great marksman.
Really?
Won all kinds of awards. And he was a really nice man. And he was very tough wrestler. Did the breaking the bricks gimmick.
Right.
So, which brings us to the main event.
Sure. And this is interesting because this might just be a function of the design. It's Bruno, the world champion, defending against crippler Carl Kovacs, which is not, I thought my mind played a trick on me. I thought there was going to say Killer Carl Cox, but it's crippler Carl Kovacs, who's a new name to me. And I thought that was going to be his picture, but it's actually a picture of Tanaka.
Right.
So I don't know anything about Carl Kovacs. Obviously, Bruno's almost close to the end of his run here. He's at 1970, so he's almost done with the first run as champ. What can you tell me about crippler Carl Kovacs? Because I'm drawing a blank.
Well, it was Stan Kowalski, who was a Midwest guy, wrestled like with the Bruiser in Indiana territory, and they would bring in these big men. You know, the heel of the month would be, and he was the heel of the month that month, and changed his name to crippler Carl Kovacs. He had a manager, Dandy Jack, but I don't know if they brought him. I asked George. I didn't get a return message from George Knapp if Dandy Jack was with him. I don't remember Dandy Jack, but I do remember crippler Carl Kovacs. He was there for maybe, he was up and then down, and then out. But
and that was usually the pattern with Bruno opponents, right? They came in on top, and Hulk Hogan opponents too later.
And he was he was a one-time Madison Square Garden guy.
Gotcha. And obviously, the initials, the German name, I'll kind of see what they're going for there. So thankfully they're the villains in this case against the man like Bruno Sammartino. But yeah, you're going to mention the Long Island Arena. I don't know that I've ever been there. Was that replaced in some form or fashion by the Nassau Coliseum?
No. That was the predecessor to it.
Yeah.
And
it's in Comac.
Yes.
Which is a highly populated area.
And that was the main arena out there. The other odd thing before we move on to our next one is they felt the need to draw your attention. The only wrestler whose name is in red is crippler Carl Kovacs.
That's true. Yeah. And again, like we mentioned last week, 8:30, big start time. And bring the entire family. So this is interesting. I mean, Bruno's kind of a family-friendly guy. He's gonna kick the evil, maybe racist guy's butt. Are they marketing to the idea that it's clear to me that they're positioning this big Italian strongman to come kick this major racist butt. I mean, I don't know, and that bring the entire family kind of confirms that to me. But it was that common. I mean, I know we're only 12 years away from the riot at the Garden where the kids were banned.
Yeah, They just wanted you to
Bring the pin.
come one, come all. And that's it. Tickets were $3 to $6, 1970. I guess that would, if we did
the inflation, yeah, we can check. That seemed high. Some of the other posters that you had from the same time period, that Madison Square Garden one we looked at, I think the highest price was $4.
Right.
So inflation, 1970. Okay, $1 in 1970. All right, we'll do $6. At $38.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
Well, it was worth it to see Bruno and to see Lee Wong
There you
and
go.
everyone else. So, that's our first Lee Wong offering for tonight.
Through the magic of video editing, we are here with number 2, Cary. And this one, well, I'm kind of excited to see what it is. You mentioned it's only 40 years old, so that puts us at what, 1980, 81?
Yes, and the Lee Wong thing, the idea, here's the thing. The idea that they would put his name on the poster was just incredible.
Yeah.
So it's very rare. So I saw this on eBay about a month ago, and I had to get this.
Yeah.
You know, I was hoping there wasn't some shill bidding going against me, but I had to get this. So why don't you flip this over?
All right.
And we'll see what 1981 WWF looked like.
And to give you an idea of what Cary's saying, I've seen Rosemont Horizon posters that only have the main event or only have the first 2 matches, or the Garden that only have 3 matches, Randy Savage versus Hulk Hogan. It's rare that they have the undercard unless it's, the Elizabeth, New Jersey High School, the spot show.
Well, this is Asbury Park.
Oh, okay. Well, this is very nice. Look at this. Okay. Convention Hall.
Might have been a Thanksgiving weekend card, possibly.
Looks like Black Friday, yeah. And first thing I'm going to say is the main event's rather confusing because my eyes immediately associate
Yes.
Mr. Fuji and Tony Garea against Mr. Saito and Rick Martel, which was not the teams, and we'll get into that. But
Well, let's go from the top.
we'll go from the top, okay? Fuji and Saito and Tony Garea, Rick Martel. Tony Garea and Rick Martel, if this is from 81, they may have already lost the titles, but both teams were kind of trading the titles back and forth. So off the top of my head.
I don't know either. Well, actually, it doesn't indicate who was the champion.
Right.
From the way it's printed.
And that's probably a safe play because I know that Garea and Martel lost the titles in March of 81 in Allentown.
I have the information in my notes.
There you go.
Me. Fuji and Saito are the champs.
Okay. Yeah, I knew Garea and Martel lost the titles in Allentown earlier that year. And Fuji and Saito would have a great reign. And they would lose it, if I'm not mistaken, via salt in the eyes, right? The miscommunication, the salt goes in, I think, Mr. Fuji's eyes.
Who they lose to?
I'll have to look that up. It wasn't Soul Patrol. It might have been back to Garea and Martel.
Yeah, possibly. Well, in this contest, the champions lost, but unfortunately, it was by disqualification.
Oh.
And the belts don't change hands.
Ah.
So I'm sure the fans in Asbury Park were jumping up and down that we're seeing new champions, but that wasn't to be.
Can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
When was the first time you saw that finish? Because as a kid at the house shows, it would happen every house show and the people would go bananas. And it'd be the same people you saw 6 months before, 3 months before. Everybody would still get excited though, thinking there was new champions.
I saw it at the Garden all the time.
Right.
All the time they would do it.
Yeah.
They would go banana.
They would go banana.
Quote the great Pat Patterson. But they did it forever, and it always seemed to work. And then the announcement was made, and the fans would boo.
Well, they lost to the Strongbows.
Okay.
That's for just to clear that up.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. The crowd did not like the fact that the titles didn't change hands.
So there were 2 title matches on the show.
There were. And again, this one, off the top of my head, I'm having trouble placing who was the champ because I think Morocco beat Pedro for the title eventually, right?
I think Pedro.
Yeah, your notes say that Pedro had the title at this point. But I think it's clever because you could run these posters ahead of time. And if you had any idea that one of these teams were the champions, you don't even have to indicate who was the champ. Because again, this poster visually makes it appear as if Don Morocco's the champ coming in.
And they did another disqualification.
Oh, okay.
Boy, if that was at Ring of Honor, they'd boo us out of the building.
Right.
But yeah, so look at Tony Garea.
That picture's from that picture's got to be from 1971.
Probably his college graduation picture or high school graduation picture.
Right.
Handsome Tony Garea. So then we go down. I don't know if you know much about Bulldog Brower or not.
Did he run a territory? Did he?
No. He was around for a long time. He was a Canadian.
Okay.
Probably was in his prime in the 60s. Mm-hmm. This had to be towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
He might have. I'm almost sure he had a one title match against Bob Backlund.
Okay.
During this era, they were generous to him, and he's taken on SD Jones, who was in WWF seemingly forever.
Sure. Well, can you tell me what he and Lee Wong had in common?
Well, they were both from New York.
Well, allegedly.
Yeah.
They both had many hometowns. He was also from Philadelphia and from Antigua.
Okay.
So.
And George Napolitano told me he would pick up Lee Wong and sometimes S.G. Jones and Frankie Williams, all in Brooklyn. And bring them to the matches, depending on where it was geographically.
I thought Frankie Williams was from Columbus, Ohio.
No, he was in the city. Well, he might have been, but he was in the city. So I said to George, "Where did you pick Lee Wong up?" Yeah. He goes, "At a Chinese restaurant."
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
He worked at a Chinese restaurant.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a lesson, boys and girls, that. Just because you're on TV, it doesn't mean you're making the huge bucks. Davey O'Hannon, he's international. Was he from Australia, or is he from Ireland?
I think he was from Boston.
He's from Boston. Okay, let me look.
You could take a look.
Yeah, let's look this up real quick. Get the people.
There were some, cards subject to change. By the way,
yeah,
some of these advertised matches did not happen, and I'll tell you what they were.
Please. Yeah, Irish Davey O'Hannon, a native of New Jersey.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Well, he didn't make it to Asbury Park that night.
The one guy from New Jersey.
And Manuel Soto pinned Angelo Gomez.
Don't know Angelo Gomez. Was he a TV guy?
Yes.
Okay. And only minimal about Manuel Soto.
And now that I'm looking at my notes, Davey. What do we got here?
Yeah.
Davey O'Hannon didn't make it either because SD Jones pinned Ron Shaw.
Oh, okay.
Who was supposed to be taking on Lee Wong. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, this is even more interesting as we look. There was another match that's not listed. Kurt Hennig fought Larry Sharp to a draw.
That's a shame. That's a really interesting match.
So in the end, Lee Wong was not on the show.
Well, it looks like he was. He was substituted Steve King.
Oh yes, thank you.
It's Steve.
Thank you. Lee Wong wasn't. Steve King pinned Lee Wong.
So of the advertised matches, you got the top two, and you got the bonus match of Kurt Hennig versus Larry Sharp, which sounds great. It sounds like it'd be fun to watch, but you didn't get these three. At least not as originally constituted.
I don't think anyone was upset. But,
did they ever offer refunds if there was and this is more of a general question, were you ever at an event where they said, hey, this person's not here, go to the box office?
Only the classic story, which you could hear on Last Stop Penn Station, when in Elizabeth, at the Elizabeth Armory or the Ritz Theater, when Haystacks Calhoun wasn't there, and they had the little sign up at the box office, leg infected, no refund.
No.
But Willie Gilzenberg had to climb in the ring anyway, later to be pelted by beer cups and orange juice containers to tell the people, you're not getting, God damn it, you're not getting your money back. But yeah, that was, no, they didn't give refunds.
Oh my goodness. Well, this is a very interesting card. What pops out to me is there's no Bob Backlund. There's no world champion. They have the other two titles. I can't imagine that
I checked. They weren't running another card that night.
I was going to say this.
Or if there was, it's not in the
history of
internet
WWE.
histories.
Well, and that's kind of surprising to me, although all of the TV guys, these were the guys they were featuring at the time. You know, Hulk Hogan came and went a little bit at the time. Andre came and went a little bit at the time. But, I mean, this is, if you were watching WWF from Allentown or Hamburg, this is who you were seeing on a regular basis.
I don't know why they didn't decide to list the Kurt Hennig Larry Sharp match as opposed to the Shaw Wong battle.
Classic encounter, absolutely. Maybe it was a bonus match. Larry's from Paulsboro. Paulsboro's
might have called him
40 minutes
come
from.
On in.
Yeah, and Larry was part of the what was the team? The blonde the Blondes.
I think he was with Jack Evans.
He was with Jack Evans. Yep. So he and Jack Evans at the time were a team. So. Very interesting poster. Thank you for sharing this one. This one, as you can see, rarely do the events come out as advertised.
And once again, if you want to challenge my opinion of Lee Wong, who, by the way, Stu Sachs from Pro Wrestling
Illustrated, yeah.
Right, but prior to his taking over, there's a quote, and you could find this on the internet, when he was describing Lee Wong, his chop was so bad he couldn't break an egg.
Poor Lee Wong.
And if you want to see Lee Wong, there's the match from 73 on the network against Blackjack Mulligan. Mm-hmm. And somewhere in the All-Star Wrestlings in 81, you could see some of his comeback matches.
The big 81 comeback.
They're incredible.
Yeah. Well, that's something for y'all to watch. Maybe we can do a watch along here on Ad Free Shows one day of the great Blackjack Mulligan Lee Wong encounter. But Cary, thank you so much for taking us inside your collection for the posters of the week. For more of Cary and I, you can check out Last Stop Penn Station podcast. You can check out the 55 and 5 series, where we go through each individual in the 55 Parker set, one card at a time, to keep those names alive. All of that is presented by Basan Creative and Web Design. Check them out, basancreative.com. So for Cary, our producer AJ, I'm Ian Riccaboni. Thanks for joining us, everyone.